Hi, Book Fam. I am back with another video. This is a review deep dive into As Sure as the Dawn by Francine Rivers. It took me 2 days to finish this book, and I think that is really good for me. It usually takes me a week to finish bigger books, and I had time though. I sat down, dedicated time to just read, and it was refreshing. It was nice, and this book was absolutely wonderful. Out of the three books, this one has to be my favorite. And there's mixed talk about this one on TikTok as far as like the crowd that has interacted with me when I shared that I was reading these. Some said this one was not their favorite. This actually turned out to be the one that was the absolute best. And all three of them are wonderful books. They're all 5 stars and above. I've been rating them 6 stars because they're just so good. This series will forever be in my mind rent free. Francine Rivers really took her time digging deep into the history of ancient Rome, Germania, and the practices among the people, religions, and just the people themselves. I am blown away. And she did such a good job conveying her message in this story and honoring the Lord, conveying this message, spreading the gospel in this book. Um, it was very well written, in my opinion. I absolutely love this one. I cried in this one, and I cried thinking about this one today. Like, there was a character in here that just, I mean, it just pulled on your heart. It just pulled on your heart. It was so good. So, this will have spoilers in it. If you don't want to hear spoilers, this one is not for you because I'm really going to just get into some of the things that went on in this book. Oh my gosh, absolutely loved all three characters. This story, it revolves around Atretes, Rizpah, and Theophilus. Theophilus, I hope I'm saying that right. Theophilus. Um, so Atretes, you have read from book one, more so, not so much in book two, but he is mentioned. He was from Germania. He was captured and forced to be a slave in the arena as a gladiator, and he earned his freedom eventually. But he ended up getting entangled with a woman that he shouldn't have been. But they ended up creating a child. Julia and him came together. They created a child, and Julia didn't want the child. She told Hadassah to put the child on the rocks. And Hadassah did not listen to that. She gave this child to John, and John ended up leaving the child in the care of Rizpah, who had recently lost her child. And Rizpah is young. I believe they're around the ages of 28 in here. I don't know what her age was, but she was young as well. But she ends up taking care of Atretes' child, naming him Caleb, and taking him as her own. This is her baby now. She is bonded with this child. She's taking care of this child. She has nursed this child, so that this child is hers. And he starts to have dreams about this child, and he's conflicted. He's tormented by his actions and how he treated Julia when she told him she was pregnant. And Hadassah ends up telling him that the child is not dead, and who to go to speak to find his son. So he ends up going on a journey to find John. John tells him who has a baby. He tries to go, but he has been almost revered as an idol in this state of Ephesus. I don't know if it was a state Ephesus. In Ephesus, he is almost revered as an idol. They made images of him, and it's pretty terrible how people were, but there's people like that today. And you got to be careful with that because you can make anything an idol. So you got to be careful with that. But they were looking at him, idolizing him, making images of him, and he gets caught and is mobbed down. But he escapes. He escapes, and he has to just tuck his tail and go back home. He then sends a letter to John, and John talks to Rizpah, and Rizpah ends up bringing the baby to him. She doesn't want to. She's heartbroken by this. He ends up taking the baby and telling her to leave. She doesn't leave. She ends up staying on his doorstep, and the wet nurse that he has hired cannot nurse this baby. The baby won't latch on to her, and he ends up taking Rizpah in to take care of his child. So that's where this relationship starts. And I'll tell you, I love this book was more relatable to me now because I have been married for over 10 years. So I like the books 1 and 2 because they develop a relationship, but then you don't see Marcus and Hadassah married. You don't see their life as a married couple. And here you get to see them develop a relationship, start to care for each other, have feelings for each other, the conflict and marriage. And then that's when the testing really happens. That's when things really get dirty and deep. And I absolutely loved how she wrote that in this book. So good. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I enjoyed this one more than the other two, because you don't really have a lot of books, or I haven't read yet a lot of books where they're focused on a marriage, the trials that married couple go through, and she really hits it with she's on point in the story. So like I said, this book is heavy on relationships, and that's why I loved it. And with the author focusing on relationship in the story, you have heavy being resilient in your faith, and also in your marriage, because the marriage is tested in here. It's tested, and your faith is challenged because your marriage is being challenged. And having resilience, trust in the Lord, bringing all your cares, casting them upon Him, talking to God in prayer, and going back to the scriptures for your nourishment. I like how she wrote that in here, because these two, once they got married, they had a short honeymoon phase, and then they were in new territory in Germania, and with people practicing pagan worship, and the antagonist in here, Ammonia, said the author wrote she was very attractive, and it was a test for Atretes, because his eyes, it says his eyes and everything were devouring her. He started to lust after her. And you have Rispa, who he absolutely loved, but he knew from his previous relationship with Julia that this woman was beautiful, but she had the heart and mind of Julia. So he knew to stay away from her. He had discernment, but he was really tested with lust. And so I love how the author incorporated that in the story, and also what goes on in your mind, your morals in your mind, and your values, and adultery, because it doesn't always look physical. It can be in your mind also. It can be, like Jesus said, if you looked at them with lust, you've committed adultery. So that was included in here, and I like how it was included, because he started to lust after this woman, and then it affected his relationship with Rispa, his wife. It affected how he treated her, and it affected the intimacy they had together on a physical level. It affected that as well, and he caught it, and he was so conflicted that he couldn't even touch her. He had to stop, and he acknowledged that it felt like he was committing adultery. And I just love how that was incorporated, because we can get like that as human beings. We can be married, we can have trouble one day, and we can look at one person or look at somebody else's situation and lust after that situation which you're looking at on the outside, and start to have these desires internally that can mess up your relationship with your spouse. And it can start subtle, to where, oh, he left the dish on the counter, I bet you they don't have that problem, or something. Then you start to get angry, then you start to nitpick at everything and wish they were someone else, or you start to fantasize about this dream person in your head, which is, it can go down real fast, and then it can affect your relationship. Then you're not talking, you're having these outbursts from little things, and your spouse is like wondering what's going on, So I love how she wrote that in here. And let me see. Yeah, spiritual conflict. I have notes, y'all. I have notes. So I already talked about that. I'm trying not to be so long with these reviews, but this book was so good, y'all. If you've gotten to this point in the video, if you like my content, like this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share it with a friend, and yeah, let's finish this review, grab some coffee, popcorn, whatever. Let's get back into it. Theophilus had to be all three were my favorite. Theophilus, He was so good because he was older, but he had this calling, this task to take Atretes and Rizpah to Germania, and he was basically a buffer for them too when they couldn't get their act together. And it almost reminded me of a family situation in our life. One of my uncles is kind of like the buffer for my grandmother and the rest of the family. I feel like because they spoke every day, and I don't know what their conversations were like, but it reminded me of that in here and how he kind of put things in perspective for these two in the early stages of their relationship and marriage, and really fed them the Bible and the scriptures um, to help them in their relationship and to keep them grounded in the Lord. And it almost was like he became a crutch for them, and they were relying heavily on him, that when he was gone, it was so devastating. And that happened in our family, and I feel like it happened for a reason. And it's so sad. My uncle passed away a couple years ago, but I feel like he was like a buffer for my grandma, and she talked to him every day, and now he's passed. And then our family kind of just went to their own little islands. So yeah, and here though, he passes. If y'all read that, he passes. I was so heartbroken by that, but it was like he knew his time was up. He served the purpose that God had for him, and there was a soul that needed to be saved. Theophilus already being saved, this isn't the end for him, even though his mortal body be gone. But his death brought a soul to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I liked how that was written in here. And that was the hardest part of this book for me. That was the hardest part. And when Atretes actually confides in Ammonia, the antagonist, the secret things and the secrets or the hidden intimacy with him and Rizpah, when he starts to drunkenly say these things that should have been just between him and his wife, he broke this intimacy and it became adultery because he shared this with her, and it's heartbreaking, but it almost causes Rizpah her life. And it's like he couldn't do anything to change the situation after that. It was his fault. It was his fault, and he had to just surrender to the Lord. And it was like a learning experience and testing of his faith, but really to teach him to surrender the situation, because he was helpless in saving his wife. He had to call on the Lord, which he should have been doing during the whole conflict with her. But yes, this is a 6-star read. Okay, I've got a good quote. So when Theophilus passes, it is devastating. But there is this quote that I feel goes right along with what happens to him. And it's that forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and handcuffs of hatred. It's the power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. So after Theophilus passes, Atretes is enraged, and his faith is like, he's not thinking about his faith. He's not thinking about forgiveness. He's not thinking about bringing his cares to the Lord. He is enraged, and he is a gladiator once again. He wants his own vengeance, and he's not leaving space for the Lord's vengeance. And it just causes him to lash out at his wife and separate from her. But this quote goes with that. Like, if you can't forgive, you will always be bound down to hatred, to resentment, to just the self-loathing, to depression. You will get all those things if you can't forgive. If you forgive, it's so freeing. It's a weight lifted off your shoulders, and it's no longer a crutch that you can use. You have to do the work and heal yourself. When people do you wrong, you have to do the work to take care of yourself and heal yourself. And it starts with forgiveness. I know that that's a hard thing to do, but when you forgive, they don't have the power anymore. They don't have the power anymore. And I like this quote so much. And there's another one here. Hope is the anchor for our souls, the steadfast assurance that God is faithful and will fulfill his promises. There were so many situations where Rizpah had to stop, get on her knees and pray about her marriage, about Atretes, because he was very difficult through the whole book. But that, and having just hope that things will be all right, casting your cares upon the Lord. And she just really talked herself through some things by talking to the Lord. And sometimes she was so silver tongued, that some of the stuff she said was quick and very hurtful in a situation that was already bad. And she had to catch herself and say, Lord, why can't I just be silent? But she prays, and she prays and she hopes. And I feel like that quote was so very good for her character. Um, and then Jesus told us openly and daily what his will is for us. Love one another. I feel like that one was a very strong one for this whole book, especially with Atretes, because he had so much that had been done to him by Roman people, that he was so hateful and prejudiced against anybody that was Roman, no matter what their character is individually. He just didn't like them because they were Roman, because of what they did to him, what he did to his tribe. And also women. He had a bad light on women because of Julia, what she did to him, how she acted, how she threw his love away. And it affected his interactions with Rizpah all the way until it caused a drastic interaction of her being shot by an arrow to change his heart, and just this veil to be lifted over his eyes. Yeah, so very good. So the whole story: love one another, no matter who you are. You can love those who've done you wrong as well. Forgive and love. It doesn't have to be this interactions of, oh, you need to be in my circle kind of love. No, you can, you know what, you did this to me, you hurt me, but I love you, as Christ loved the church. And you can move on with your life. You don't have to have any ill will. You'll be set free. And it's hard to do. That is hard to do, but by God's grace, you got to go to him and everything, and he will give you the strength. So just a wonderful book. I actually bought the Audible to this today. I finished this last night, bought the Audible today, and started re-listening because I just couldn't get enough of the story. So that's all I have to say. Yeah, I loved them two together and their character, but I also loved Theophilus because he was just like this grounding for them, keeping them on the path in their relationship and their walk with the Lord, and giving them scriptures. And he himself had a little bit of a conflict. As soon as he made it to Germania, he cared deeply for both of them, but then he talks to himself, and it was like, I think I care for Rizpah a little too much. I think I love her a little too much. And at that point, it was like, your task has been completed, my child. And he dies. And I was like, why? But I would have loved to have seen him survive with just a good life. But you know what? Sometimes that happens, and man, it was good. It was a good book. Anyways, what am I reading now? I had two arcs, but I'm leaning towards one that I think I talked about in my last video more so than the other, and that is Birds of a Feather, y'all. Now, Kate Stewart's writing is phenomenal. I don't know what I'm getting into in here. I know her last book was pretty steamy. I'm going to do my best to get through those, and probably skip some pages. But if you are reading, you don't want any of that in your books, probably don't pick this one up. But she is a fantastic writer. I love how she has the gleam on here. She has the pain, the emotions, the heartache, and the happiness and love in relationships down pat. And she in the first book, Severed Heart, that marital conflict that was in it, the testing of their marriage that was in the first book between Tyler's parents, was written so well and raw. Like, whew. I mean, so I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to be reading this today. Tyler has to be my favorite character. I like how he just had this mind of a soldier, but he just had this heart of gold inside. And I want him to have a happily ever after, or somewhat look like it. She don't hardly ever write a good happily ever after. It's the happily for now. These her books are good. So I am so excited to start that, y'all. That's all I got. I haven't watched any movies. Like I said, last time I watched Wuthering Heights, and I kind of like I read the book a very long time ago, back when I was in college. I just didn't wasn't required to read it, but I read it, and I'm telling you, like I said before, it's really good. I like how Emily Bronte wrote these two selfish people that just got love wrong. One was love wasn't enough for one, and love was it for the other. And their love was like rotted. Their love was like rotted. Okay, but I feel like if Catherine hadn't been so selfish, if she had loved Heathcliff, no matter what his status was, that they would have had a passion and love that could last. But, you know, Heathcliff had to go out and become a man for her. But when he did, it was like he was too late. Um, she didn't wait. And I like how Emily Bronte writes about if you don't wait, what that can what your life could look like if you don't wait. Um, oh, and in this one, I like how the author talked about your past, and just being washed by the blood of Jesus and made new. And I like how, Rispa, she had a past. She had an abusive childhood, and she fled from that after her mother died. And I like how, she felt deep shame about the things that she had to do just to have a roof over her head. And the Atretes bore down on her fire and brimstone about it. And it was so hurtful to see her past being brought up and affected like that again to her when she had done so much and come so far, and accepted Jesus and was like, I've made new. But Atretes is like, no, this you're not, And then it's like he has an encounter with a child that could have been Rispa on the streets and needing money, needing food, and he starts to think about it and is humbled by that. So I like how she wrote that in there too. How we can make mistakes or things happen to us and we can feel shame, but we are made new in Jesus Christ. So yeah. But back to Wuthering Heights. Yeah. I watched it. It's rated R, y'all. It was heavily sexualized more than the books. The book was classy. And if you're wanting to see Wuthering Heights, a good rendition, the 1939 version was really good. But yeah, I'll say, I don't know if I have any plans to watch anything else but read, but I do want to watch another good love story. If you guys have any good recommendations, I'm more towards like the emotional love stories with a good ending. But yeah, let me know what you're reading. If you've read the Mark of the Lion series, let me know what your favorite book was, your favorite character, and yeah, toodaloo. Oh, I have to let y'all know, I am a Pango Books ambassador, and on that platform you can find new books, used books, first editions, special editions, and if you use my affiliate link, I'll leave it in the comments, you get $5 off your order. So enjoy that. I know I'm on the platform every day. I'm looking for books. I have posted books, and yeah, right now I have my eyes on Empire of Silence, the Sun Eater series, book 1. I wanted to get a good deal on it, but if you're into rehoming books, that's a very good platform. There are a lot of books out there that are in good condition on that platform. So yeah, give it a try. Pango Books. Anyways, toodaloo, you guys. Have a good day.